Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode. I am happy that you are joining us today. So, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It took a lot of back and forth for me to actually do this episode. It's something that's quite personal, and for the past few months, I've been debating whether I would actually talk about this. I mean, you already see it on the title. So yeah, let's get into it. I'll try not to cry about this one. Last June, I made a choice. And this was a big decision, as it was also something I have been avoiding for some time. And this choice I made, this was something that came with a lot of back and forth with a lot of people until recently. I finally chose to give my faith another shot. This is something I don't often talk about, not even with my friends. So, this a first for me as well. So, yeah, where am I getting at with this? So, to tell you guys the truth, I did not exactly have what you would say a strong background when it comes to faith. Like, sure, when I was younger, I would attend Mass as a Catholic growing up. But I've only ever viewed those things as requirements or something for the sake of compliance. When I was younger, I would lead prayers at school, singing worship songs when I was in church choir. And, looking at it now, it was all so performative. At one point, I started to believe that maybe I'm just agnostic, Although I did give, Christian church a chance. But at the time, I had very little understanding of God's work. So I only ever attended for the sake of appeasing others, which, we all know how that ends, which resulted into forced faith and not really developing that genuine and personal relationship with God. So you can just imagine, I'm now 27 years old. And that's been 27 years of fluctuating, half-hearted, and little to no belief in God. But to others, I look like I had my entire life together. Because while I did have a booming career, and okay, I have a social life, I have friends, I had a network, and all those things. But none of that made me say that I was genuinely happy. Nor did I feel like I was doing it for any other reason but to, just do those things. Because growing up, we have been told by our parents, our teachers, whoever, that we should be successful, we should be this, we should be that. And I just got into it like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do just that. And while I did enjoy all the good things that it came with, I still felt like I was just putting on a show for others. I had a very little sense of direction, or what others would say, purpose, because what or who was I doing all that for? Of course, I live my life according to my goals. Of course, we all have goals, right? But that was it. After hitting one goal after another, I wouldn't know what to do next. And all of that sort of created this void that I wasn't even aware of. Because I was taking control of everything, in my life. Even the things that I should not be trying to control. Because majority of my life was orchestrated by the desire to control everything. And that also comes with controlling everyone around me. I had trouble letting go of things that were weighing me down. Like, I did not want to let those things go or those people go because those were the only things that I knew. Even if I was aware that those things or people were weighing me down. And this was because I was trying to control everything, everyone, what everyone thinks of me, how everyone saw me, because I had very little trust in God at the time. So you're probably asking what prompted all of this. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be real, like, this did not happen overnight. Okay? This took years of resisting and trying to brush away my faith in God. I guess I'm gonna share with you what the turning point was like for me. Oh my gosh. So one night last June, I came home from work. That was a pretty heavy week for me, emotionally. Usually, whenever I would feel down during the week, I would just call up any of my friends and we would just have, drinks after and get tipsy and those kind of things. That night in June, what I did was something I would say at the time was a bit out of character for me, because it was as if my entire body went on autopilot. Next thing I knew, I was just setting my things down into my house and I was going back out. So I just grabbed a random set of car keys and drove. I know. I mean, I get it. Sometimes we just want to drive to relax, But this was different, I guess. I didn't even know where I was going. I just drove. I just put the keys into the ignition and went wherever. So I was driving, and this was at around 7 or 8 p.m. So I was just driving with tears running down my eyes that night. And what I said next kind of shocked me at the time. I just flat out said, I want to go to a church. Oh, okay. So that's what I did. So it was around 7 or 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. I parked my car at the nearest church I could find. While I was parked there, I still had a sliver of doubt because, it was 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. Would this church be even open? I didn't know. But there was a part of me that just said, just get out of the car, walk over there and just check. Okay? And besides, what did I have to lose at the time? I mean, there was a Starbucks near that church, so I could just get matcha latte or something, right? So that's what I did. I walked inside and one of the staff at the church approached me. And I asked him if the church was open. And he said no, it wasn't. Like, oh, okay. Guess I'll just go. But I kept walking, and then that same staff stopped me and said, but we have a small chapel if you just want to pray. That's open until 10 p.m. So I said, okay, sure, I'll just go there, I guess. Because, I just needed some other place to think that was quiet. Okay, I'm trying my best not to cry. So I walked inside this small chapel that I was pointed to. And I was by myself. Even when I walked into that chapel, no one was there. And as I sat down one of the seats, everything just came pouring out. Because that was the first time in a long time that I actually spoke to God. And while I was there, I talked to God about everything that was bothering me at the time. Because that was last June, and it was less than a month until I moved to another country, and along with some other heavy things that were happening in my life. I even spoke about the things that I didn't have the guts to admit to myself or anyone until that moment. When I left the chapel after, I don't know, like a couple of hours, I instantly felt like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. And to tell you the truth, after that conversation with God, that was one of the few times I felt like I was just being me. Like I didn't have to act a certain way. I didn't have to perform in a certain manner. No performance, no anything, just me. And that was the most at home I felt with myself. So every day that week, I went to that same chapel, just talking to God about everything and everyone. And that same week, I also made the promise to myself and to God that I would return to my faith. So I went from this person who would avoid this sort of conversation. I know some people who are really in touch with their faith, and that's great for them. So whenever the topic would be about, faith and going to church and those things, I would awkwardly just brush it off. Or I would just say whatever I could to avoid that conversation. So I went from avoiding this entire topic and now being vocal about it because, as I said in the beginning of this episode, it took a while for me to have the guts to talk about this. Because in the past few weeks, whenever I would try to record this episode, I would actually just burst into tears and I couldn't film anymore. And I've talked to my close friends about this. I've even talked to some of my friends at church about this, and it's really nice to hear that they still believe in me. And one of my friends at church actually told me something. Because, I told her about my dilemma of filming this episode. She just told me, just sit down, pray, and I'm sure you'll know what to say. That was actually what I did. I've been praying for the past few days that please just, let me film this episode and just get through it. And here I am. So since that week of making that promise that I would actually go back to my faith, I've been attending Sunday service with my best friend. And before I even started this entire podcast, I actually asked God to use my skills and my talent for something good. I asked God to let me use this podcast for something good. That's why I'm so happy to see a lot of my friends and even some strangers from the internet commenting or messaging me about the podcast, saying that they enjoyed listening to it or it was something they needed to hear. It's just really amazing to realize the things we can do when we finally choose to walk with God. I'm still gonna be real with you guys, okay? I am not the perfect Christian. I'm not the ideal Christian, okay? I'm still human. And of course, I'm not exempt to making mistakes or saying the wrong things or doing the wrong things. I also believe that there's a lot I am yet to discover in this journey. The difference now is that I fully recognize that there's a higher power that I can trust with anything and everything that I'm doing. There's a higher power that I can trust to give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and finally, the wisdom to know the difference. So to end this episode, I would just like to say thank you for once again tuning in to the podcast. So whether you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, I hope you give the podcast some love. It would really help if you would rate this podcast on Spotify or leave a like or a comment if you're watching on YouTube, because I actually read all the comments. Once again, I'm just so grateful that I get to do this podcast. We're actually nearing 10 episodes, so wow. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, really. If you're ever someone like me who is thinking if it's too late to go back, or if you should go back, then I'll just tell you this. It took 27 years for me to make this decision of going back to God. So whether you're older than me, younger than me, it's never too late. Because you can always come back. Again, thank you for tuning into this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.